Bro, listen up because today the Washington Commanders are shaking the 2026 free agency market, and you really need to be sitting down for this. I am not exaggerating. From the moment that noon whistle blew on Monday and the negotiation window opened, this organization has been moving with a speed and a level of intent we have not seen in years. And today, Wednesday, March 11th, the news just keeps coming one on top of another, like Adam Peters opened up the valves and said, "Let us spend, let us build, let us win." And fam, I am right here live to watch it happen. Today, we have 3 storylines that are going to blow your mind. One is a rumor that is turning into reality and has the Commanders fan base completely losing it. The second one is a rejection that hurts. But there is a story behind it that you need to hear all the way through before you start judging Adam Peters. And the third is a quiet, low-key addition that, when you really break it down, bro, the Commanders are building something serious in the red zone. And in this team's passing game, 3 pieces of news, 1 clear message. Washington is playing to win in 2026. No excuses. No, we are rebuilding. No, wait until next year. It is right now. So grab your coffee, your water, whatever you're drinking, hit that subscribe button if you still have not, and let us break all of this down together. This is Commanders football. This is our season, and we are just getting started. Let us go. News 1, Brandon Aiyuk is coming to Washington. Bro, let us start with the one everybody is talking about. The one that has Twitter, Reddit, every Commanders fan group absolutely on fire. Brandon Aiyuk, the wide receiver from the San Francisco 49ers, who was one of the best receivers on the planet just about a year and a half ago, is about to land in Washington. And I am not talking about some distant speculation or random rumor with no source. I am talking about a report from Jonathan Jones from CBS Sports, one of the most reliable reporters in the NFL, saying straight up that it is not a matter of if Aiyuk signs with the Commanders, but when. And the when, according to Nick Wagoner from ESPN, could be as early as this very Wednesday, meaning today. Today. Let me give you the full context because this story has layers you cannot ignore. Brandon Aiyuk was drafted by the 49ers in the first round of the 2020 draft. He spent several seasons as one of the toughest receivers to cover in the entire league. In the 2023 season, he was absolutely stellar, finishing with more than 1,300 yards and 7 touchdowns, being one of the key factors in San Francisco's run to the Super Bowl. He signed a massive extension with the Niners in 2024, thinking the future was going to be there. But then October 2024 hit, and in a game nobody wants to remember, Aiyuk tore his anterior cruciate ligament, the ACL, the most feared injury for any speed receiver in football. And from that moment on, Brandon Aiyuk has not stepped on a professional field, not a single snap, not a single carry, nothing. And now the 49ers, in the middle of a cap reset and a roster reshuffle, are going to cut him. Because, bro, the Niners are in. We have to get under the cap mode. And a receiver who did not play at all last year and is sitting on a heavy contract, it is a tough decision, but it makes sense from the front office point of view. San Francisco lets him go and Washington scoops him up. Just like that, simple and complicated at the same time. Why complicated? Because the huge elephant in the room is the injury. A torn ACL is not something you bounce back from in 3 weeks and come back as the exact same player. There are receivers who come back at 100% after an ACL tear. Some even look better, but there are also plenty of cases where the player never recovers that explosion, that confidence to plant and cut without thinking. That first step off the line of scrimmage that used to be their signature. Aiyuk is one big question mark wrapped around exceptional talent, and Washington knows that. Jonathan Jones was very clear in reporting that the Commanders are not putting all their eggs in the Aiyuk basket. They are not signing this deal expecting a locked-in WR2. They are bringing Aiyuk in on a 1-year deal, calculated risk, hoping to resurrect that career while they keep looking for other options in the market. Now, what makes this story straight up cinematic, what gives it a dimension that goes beyond just football, is the connection with Jaden Daniels. Bro, Aiyuk and Daniels played together at Arizona State. They shared the college field. They know each other. They have that chemistry. You cannot just draw up in a playbook. When Daniels got to Washington and started flipping this franchise on its head, One of the questions fans kept asking was, what if we could surround Jaden with people who already know him? People there is real chemistry with, not just professional, and now that might actually happen. Daniels would have next to him someone that grew with him as a quarterback, someone he built timing with, someone with a shared history. That is not worth zero, fam. That is worth a lot. Think about Cliff Kingsbury's scheme as offensive coordinator. Kingsbury loves using receivers in creative routes in motion before the snap, in situations where timing between the QB and the WR is absolutely critical. A healthy Aiyuk in that system with Daniels throwing would be a nightmare for any corner in the league. We are talking about a receiver who can beat press coverage, who has soft hands, who knows how to create separation with body positioning if the ACL healed well, if the rehab was clean, if the body responds. Bro, this could be one of the signings of the whole market. But let us have the honest conversation we need to have. The Commanders cannot treat Aiyuk as a sure thing. They have not seen him play in 17 months. They do not know which version of Brandon Aiyuk is going to show up once training camp kicks off in July. That is why the contract structure matters so much. 1 year, no automatic extension, no massive guarantees beyond what is reasonable. It is a contract that basically says, we are giving you the opportunity. We are giving you the environment. We are giving you the QB you grew up with, but you have to prove you are still you. And that is exactly what this kind of move should be. And in terms of the receiver market, because you have to frame this news in that context too. The Commanders are in a tricky spot. Their WR1 is set in stone and beyond question. Terry McLaurin. Bro, Terry is the soul of this receiving core. The one player who has been the only reliable option for this team for years, no matter what is going on. And now with Daniels throwing his way, he's playing the best football of his career. But beyond McLaurin, the room is thin. Deebo Samuel is a pending free agent and could stay in Washington if the numbers make sense. Tyreek Hill is an option, but is coming off a serious knee injury and has a messy contract situation with Miami. Joan Jennings has a connection with Adam Peters from those San Francisco days, and Darnell Mooney and Christian Kirk are more WR three-level names on contending teams. So when you look at the whole picture, Aiyuk fits perfectly with the philosophy of this Commanders free agency. High risk, high upside, controlled cost. If it works, you have a McLaurin-Aiyuk duo that terrifies defenses if it does not fully hit. You still have a useful player in certain situations while you keep adding reinforcements, and you only have him for 1 year, which gives you total flexibility for 2027, fam. This is the move of a team that understands it is in a contending window and every piece matters. I want Brandon Aiyuk in Washington. I am saying it straight. I want to see that connection with Jaden Daniels. I want to see Cliff Kingsbury drawing stuff up to unleash that talent. I want to see if a legit number one receiver talent can be reborn in the right environment with the right quarterback in the right system. And if it hits, bro, if Brandon Aiyuk becomes the player he was before that ACL, the Commanders are going to have one of the toughest offenses to stop in the entire NFC. This is wild, and there is still more. Okay, bro, but hold up, because what is coming now involves an all-pro who said no, a big bag of money, and a Commander's decision that is splitting the fan base. News 2, Hendrickson turns Washington down. Chason arrives. Now let us talk about the storyline that broke more than a few Commanders fans' hearts today. And look, I am going to be completely honest with you because we are not here to paint everything in burgundy-tinted glasses when reality is a lot more complicated than that. Trey Hendrickson, the all-pro edge rusher, one of the best quarterback hunters in professional football over the last 5 years, had the Washington Commanders on the list. Washington was very aggressive, according to John Keem from ESPN. They were in it until the end, according to Jeremy Fowler. And even so, Hendrickson chose the Baltimore Ravens, a 4-year, $112 million contract, and Washington was left empty-handed. Bro, let us make sure we are clear on who Trey Hendrickson is, because you cannot talk about this rejection without fully appreciating what Washington missed out on since 2021. Hendrickson has a pass rushing grade of 92.4 according to Pro Football Focus, which puts him in the top 5 among all edge defenders in the league in that stretch. 61 sacks since 2021. third in the entire NFL. 4 Pro Bowls. We are talking about a player who does not just rack up stat sheet sacks, but completely changes an entire defensive line when you put a Hendrickson on the field. Opposing offenses have to plan for that. You have to dedicate a tight end to chip, keep a running back in protection, sometimes even slide the protection and send a double team his way. And when that level of attention is focused on Hendrickson, what happens to the rest of your defensive front? It opens up, it frees up. All your other rushers become more productive because the center of gravity of the protection is somewhere else. Now, the question every Commanders fan is asking this afternoon is, why could you not close that deal? Adam Peters, why could Baltimore get it done and Washington could not? And bro, the answer based on the reports is that Hendrickson wanted a long-term deal with a legit contender. And even though Washington can argue they are building something serious, and even though they have Jaden Daniels and just came off a strong 2025, the Ravens have been considered one of the most rock-solid franchises in the AFC for years. Lamar Jackson, a very established winning culture, a long history of building elite defenses. When Hendrickson lined both options up, he decided Baltimore was the step to take. Simple, painful, but simple. What worries me the most about this is not the rejection itself, but what it reveals about external perception of the Commanders right now. Washington is getting better, absolutely, no question. But for veteran players who have options, who really can pick their landing spot, the Commanders still are not the automatic first choice. They still have to convince people, and that is a reality Adam Peters has to confront. Not just by building a good team on paper, but by creating a winning culture so obvious, so undeniable that elite players just say, I want to be there. But here is the full context you also need. The Commanders did not just sit on their hands. They moved fast. Enter K. Lavon Chasson, a 1-year, $12 million contract, $10.3 million guaranteed. Chasson comes over from the New England Patriots, where he just had the best season of his career. And bro, when I say the best season of his career, I am talking about a player who looked headed toward draft bust territory and suddenly found his game. 7.5 sacks in 16 regular season games, 18 quarterback hits, 31 tackles. And then in the playoffs, 3 more sacks in 4 games as the Patriots made that Super Bowl run. That is not a dude who just had one good Sunday. That is a full season of sustained impact. Now, why do we still need to be cautious about Chasson? Because, bro, his story is complicated. He was the 20th overall pick in the 2020 draft by the Jacksonville Jaguars, who paid a first-round price and never really saw a decent return. He only started 11 games in 4 seasons with Jacksonville. The Jaguars declined his 5th-year option. Then he bounced to the Carolina Panthers, spent time on the Raiders practice squad, 4 starts with Las Vegas in 2024. Then he signed with the Patriots for $5 million, a player nobody was willing to pay more than that. And all of a sudden, in Mike Vrabel's system, with a defensive line that had Christian Barmore and Milton Williams eating double teams inside, Chasson blew up, and that is exactly where my real concern is, fam. Was it Chasson that blew up, or was it New England's system that made him look better than he really is? Because the Commanders' defensive line does not have the same level of interior talent. Javon Kinlaw and Darren Payne are solid players, but they are not Barmore and Williams. They do not demand that same double-team attention from guards and centers, which means Chasson in Washington may have a tougher job than he did in New England. And if context mattered more than talent in that breakout, well, there is your risk. Now let us put all this together because the full picture matters. The Commanders have Odafe Oweh locked in on a 4-year, $100 million deal, the big edge signing of this cycle. They brought Dietrich Wise back. They have Drake Jackson. They have Dorrance Armstrong and Javonte Jean-Baptiste coming back from injury. And now they have Chasson as the complement to Oweh on the edge. On paper, that is a deep edge group, but fam, depth without high-end quality only gets you so far. And Trey Hendrickson was that high-end quality that would have made every single one of those guys better for all the reasons we already went through. The rejection hurts. I will be the first to admit it. Seeing Hendrickson in a Ravens uniform, knowing the Commanders pushed and still could not close, that is exactly the kind of thing that reminds you Washington is still building its reputation as a premium destination in this league. Peters did what he could. He was in there until the very end. This was not about a lack of aggression or a lack of intent. Baltimore was simply more attractive to a 32-year-old veteran chasing a ring. And now the pressure shifts onto Chesson to prove that his season with the Patriots was not a fluke, that there is something real there, something he can reproduce in a different system with different teammates and more responsibility. That is the question Washington is going to be locked in on from the first day of training camp in July. Hopefully, Chesson has the right answer. Okay, fam, but listen, I already talked about the WR room. I already talked about the pass rushers, but there is another spot the Commanders also reinforced today that can completely change the dynamic of this offense. Buckle up because the tight end situation in Washington just got significantly better. News 3, Chig Okonkwo joins the Commanders. Bro, this is the move making the least noise today, but personally, as an analytical Commanders fan, I am very fired up about it because there is a core principle in modern football that a lot of fans still overlook. Teams that win in January have real tight ends. That is not a coincidence. That is not random. That is by design. Look at the Kansas City Chiefs with Kelsey during their dynasty. Look at the Patriots with Gronkowski. Pull up basically any offense that has dominated the playoffs over the last decade, and you are going to find a tight end who can do real damage. And today, the Washington Commanders just signed the number 3 tight end in the 2026 free agent market according to NFL.com's own rankings. Chig Okonkwo from the Tennessee Titans. And fam, let me walk you through why this matters way more than it seems. First, who is Chig Okonkwo? This dude came into the NFL as a 4th-round pick in the 2022 draft. Out of Maryland, the Titans took him without huge expectations, but Okonkwo climbed year after year in a way that reminds me of those players who just have something you cannot coach: reliability. In 4 seasons with Tennessee, Okonkwo played in all 68 possible games, 68 out of 68. Fam, in a sport where injuries are everywhere, where tight ends especially are vulnerable because they have to block and run routes, Okonkwo was always available. He started 42 games. He put up 194 catches, 2,017 yards, 8 touchdowns, and in the 2025 season, the most recent one, he put up the best numbers of his career: 56 receptions, 560 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was the leading receiver on that Titans team, on an NFL team with no elite quarterback. Being the most reliable target your QB has, that speaks volumes. What puts Okonkwo in a different tier is the consistency stat I already mentioned. He is one of just 6 tight ends in the entire league who have caught 50 or more passes in each of the last 3 seasons. The other 5 are Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Trey McBride, Jake Ferguson, and Dalton Schultz. Bro, that is the club Chig Okonkwo belongs to. He is not the most famous guy on that list, not the one getting the national hype, but he is on it. And when you show up in Washington with Jaden Daniels throwing you the rock, with an offensive coordinator like Cliff Kingsbury, who has already shown he knows how to use tight ends creatively, the conversation changes a lot. Let us talk scheme because that is where this gets really fun. In Arizona with the Cardinals, when Cliff Kingsbury had Kyler Murray healthy and a decent cast around him, he used the tight end as a multi-dimensional weapon. Not just on shallow crossers in the middle, but in goal line concepts, in 2 tight end sets, in 3rd down situations where you need a reliable hands guy who is not going to drop the ball. Okonkwo fits that profile perfectly. He has the hands, he has the reliability, and he is big enough to be a functional blocker in the run game, which matters in a balanced system like the one Washington wants to run. And fam, there is something else you should really think about. The Commanders do not have an established tight end who is a real problem in the passing game right now. Logan Thomas is a vet who has had moments, but is at the back end of that career. Cole Turner has flashed, but cannot stay healthy consistently. Okonkwo shows up and instantly becomes tight end number 1 with no real competition and a guaranteed role. That is a starting spot baked in and probably more targets than he saw in Tennessee, where the quarterback situation was nowhere near what he is going to have with Jaden Daniels when your baseline passer rating is whatever the Titans rolled out versus having Daniels at the controls. Bro, Okonkwo's numbers in Washington could look very different from what you saw in Tennessee. Also, look at the red zone impact, which is an area where the Commanders badly needed help. Once you get inside the last 20 yards, the field shrinks. Corners have less grass to cover and everything gets tighter. In that environment, a tight end who understands how to find space in crowded zones, who has steady hands in high-pressure situations, who can beat a linebacker in man coverage, that is gold. And Okonkwo's 8 career touchdowns, plus that 3-year streak of 50 or more catches, suggests he is exactly that kind of player. The cost has not been fully reported yet, but the overall market context suggests Okonkwo is not going to break the bank. NFL.com had him ranked 3rd among tight ends in the 2026 free agency class behind Cade Otton, who went back to Tampa Bay, and Isaiah Likely, who headed to the Giants with John Harbaugh. Washington landed the number 3 guy in that group, probably at a pretty efficient price considering the top 2 already locked in their deals elsewhere. In bang for your buck terms, this might end up being one of the best signings of this entire Commanders free agency run. And what I like most about this move is that it shows Peters has a holistic vision of the roster he wants to build. He is not just chasing big splash headlines, the $100 million edge guys, the flashy wideouts. He is patching real holes. Tight end was an obvious weak spot on this team, a position where you did not have a player who could be a reliable week in, week out factor, and today, with a signing that probably is not going to dominate ESPN's ticker, but that the film and numbers nerds are going to love, Washington fixes that. Chig Okonkwo in burgundy and gold. What just happened is good. This is good, fam, bro. 3 big moves, one day, and we are still just in the first real week of 2026 free agency. The Washington Commanders came into this period with clear needs and have attacked them with an energy that honestly gives me real hope. Not that, well, at least they are trying kind of hope. The hope that is grounded in actual moves, in a clear philosophy, in a team that understands its window is right now because it has Jaden Daniels playing at a superstar level, and that is not something you waste. Brandon Aiyuk is the high upside swing, the calculated roll of the dice that can flip this offense if the body holds up. Levon Chason and the entire Hendrickson saga reminds us there is still work to do before Washington becomes the no-brainer destination for the top guys in the market. But Peters is responding and building, and Chig Okonkwo is exactly that quiet but powerful addition that separates 9 and 8 teams from those that make deep playoff runs. 3 moves, 3 pieces of this puzzle getting locked into place. And remember, free agency is just getting started. There are still days and weeks of movement coming. The draft is on deck. The pieces are still flying in. So fam, if this video gave you some info, some context, some of that hype you need to kick off the week like a Commanders fan who actually knows what is going on, then do me a favor. Drop a like right now. Subscribe if you still have not, because the breakdowns are not stopping. And hit the comments. Would you sign Brandon Aiyuk? Do you trust Levon Chason to run it back and duplicate that Patriot season? And how hyped are you about Chig Okonkwo? I read every comment. See you in the next video. HTTR always.